Okay. Um, my name is Janet, and I'm supposed to be teaching cognitive processes, and I'll be starting with perception. Perception is the process of interpreting information. Perception is the process of interpreting information, and it is a very subjective process. Now we all understand that we have to interpret information. Like when we see things, we don't just see it. We have the way we understand them, but then psychology decided to understand how that happens. Like basically, psychology just study mind to study how all these cognitive processes happen. So I'll be explaining how perception happens. So I'll start with the basic characteristics of perception, which include sensation. That is like the process of getting stimuli from your environment through your sense organs. It is a biological process. It is mainly biological. Yes. Then another characteristic is that perception is selective, which means that you select what you pay attention to. So like in order to avoid getting overwhelmed and paying attention to too many things at the same time, and your brain cannot handle it to be overwhelmed. So you have to select what to pay attention to. Then perception is organized, which means that for us to interpret information, we have to study them in patterns, just like the schemas. So um, when we experience new information, we try to fit it into where it's supposed to be organized into, basically. So like we are interpreting it based on organization of things that are like it that we have experienced before. Perception is constructive, which means that we complete incomplete information in our mind. So when you see something that is not complete, you make sense of it and complete it so I can understand it. It's not like consciously do that. Like when we see something, we just know that okay, this is what this is like, even though we don't see the whole thing. Like that is a car, but I cannot see the whole thing, but I know that it's a car. But you're not seeing it to do. Contextual perception is perception is contextual, which means that it changes based on the context. Like oh, in which they are used, yes, precisely. So for example, we we might understand one thing in a certain way when it is used in a certain context or in a certain situation, but in another situation we understand it differently because well we're not paying attention to that, but because of the context we immediately know that okay, this is what it means if we have experienced it before. Then perception is constant, which means that we see things the same thing even though it's a different time or in a different way. Like a man that is maybe in an animation and he seems larger than a house. We know that he's still a man and it's animated, so our perception is constant. Then perception is dynamic, which means that it can change with new information. So that same example that I gave, I'll see a man that is bigger than a house. So if we might think that oh he's just a man and well it's animated, but when we come across new information, maybe we find out that the house is not actually a house, then we change our perception that okay, yes, mine is actually bigger than that house. Then perception is influenced by culture and experience. Okay, based on our culture or like our way of life, we are able to perceive things differently. For example, a Yoruba man perceive somebody that greeted him without lying down to be disrespectful. Meanwhile, another person might just think it's normal, like I don't expect you to lie down to greet me. Another person might even perceive a person lying down to greet them as weird. Meanwhile, a Yoruba person will say, if you not lie down to greet me, you're being disrespectful. And our experiences too. Um, if we have seen something before, for example, I've seen a car before, so when I see a car, I know that it's a car. But if I haven't, then my perception will be different. I might think it's something else. So our perception is also influenced by our experience. Then adaptive response is the response that allows us to survive. So it's a spontaneous response, and um, we have a way we understand adaptive response. For example, each person believes that okay, in this situation, this is what I will do. So our perception in adaptive response is a characteristic of perception, and when we we are in a situation that requires adaptive response. Um, it, it depends on how perceive the threat. For example, if we see a lion, we might not perceive it as a threat based on perception. Like if it's in a cage, for example, we might want to stay close and look at it. Or if it's out in the wild, we might want to run or hide or something. Then how perception is formed. We have two explanations for how perception are formed: structuralism and the Gestalt theory. Structuralism was by Wilhelm Wundt, and it's like based on the structure we understand what things are like. It looks like this and that. But Gestalt psychologists, the three of them, they came and said no, it's not always so because um, if you are looking at the structure, it might not be correct because the part is different from the whole. If you are looking at things part by part, you might not get to the whole. So they propose the theory of perceptual organization. Okay. The principles of perceptual organization, rather. Um, 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 so the Gestalt psychologists believe that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and their theories include um, the principles include good continuation, which means that we think that things are continuous and smooth. So as I'm seeing these trees going straight, I might think, oh, they continue going straight. I might not want to think that they end somewhere, even though I know that they end somewhere now, but like based on perception, we just think that it continues that way. Then similarity, we tend to group things that are similar together. So if we go to an event, for example, and we see people wearing white and black clothes with a badge, you might think, oh, all these people are workers here. Meanwhile, they might not actually be workers there. Maybe they're workers of different places, but because they're similar, we see them as the same thing. Then regularities, we have physical and semantic regularities. Regularities mean that something fits with what is regular for us. So we are when we see something that is regular for us, it's easier for us to perceive it than something that isn't regular. Like I know that this is a book, it's like a regularity for me, and I can perceive it easier than something I do not know. Physical regularities refer to consistent and predictable patterns, rules, and structures present in the physical world. So physical regularity is basically like um, what is regular in the physical world, like what we see that is regular. So um, when we see when we see something, anyways, it can be explained with the oblique effects, which is like um, explaining that when things are in their vertical upright position, we are able to interpret them faster than when they are slanted or not in their upright position. So you might notice that maybe you want to read something and you're able to read it like this, but when it's like this, you tend to do like this to read it because it's not in its upright position, and it's easier for us to perceive things that are in their upright position. Then semantic regularity is the regularity of meaning. Like in class, he gave an example of some features like luggage, tickets, and stuff, and people said an airport. So like when we have this meaning of things, what is the regular something? It's an airport, even though there might be a train station or a bus station, but what is regular for us is the airport. So that's why everybody gave airport as an example in class. Proximity means that when things are close together, they are perceived to be one. So where I am, there are some people that are sitting together in groups. So we tend to perceive them as belonging to each other or knowing each other because they are together. So basically, that's what that principle says. That persons are put together, they're together. The enclosure is completing gaps in information. So remember when I said perception is constructive, for example. Yes, perception is constructive. So that is like the same to closure, the complete incomplete information. So closure is like filling the gaps in information. The same way I explained constructive characteristic perception. Then simplicity means that we tend to perceive things in their most simple form. Like when we see information, the interpretation we give is the easiest or simplest interpretation. It's also known as the law of pregnance. Then symmetry means that we perceive things that are symmetrical or that are basically stable or organized, like easier than things that are not symmetrical. Mm. Although he said there's an exception, like for artistic people that are able to appreciate asymmetry, but like normally we we are easily able to interpret things as symmetrical. Then the figure ground relationship is like a common force. Like we tend to see things as figure and ground. So the figure is like the main image what we are looking at, and the ground is the background that we are not paying attention to. So technically, when you see anything, we perceive it as figure and ground. So, for example, someone that is watching this video might see me as figure and see everything as ground, or might pay attention to my book and that is the figure and everything else is ground. Or might be distracted by a comment and that is the figure and everything else is the ground. So we have top down and bottom up processing. Top down processing is basically what it says, like to look at something from top down. So when I'm using top down processing to explain something, so we look at the whole general thing and then from there we can deduce something, and that is like part of how we perceive things. Like um this is um books have pages with writings in them, and then we see this, that's the explanation that I gave for books, that's like the top. So we see this and then we see the pages, the writing, and then we're able to say okay, this is book, because when we look at the single structures, that's what a book is made of. Then bottom up is like from bottom up. So we look at the basic structures like pages, lines, writing, put together with the cover. So we are able to say this is a book because well, we put everything together, we are able to add up the information. So bottom up processing is known as data driven, basically because we are gathering the data to arrive at our conclusion. And top down processing is known as concept driven because like from the main concept we are able to gather the data. So that is it about perception.